I feel like, we play a game, right? We're naturally competitive, right?
Yeah.
Poker players tend to be competitive, right? Usually, especially if they
sure.
play for a living, they like to play games. I've always been games, sports, right? So I'm really competitive, and that's been the hardest part for me, is to not be so emotional, right?
Sure.
Like, when I was young, I was emotional for sure. I was one of those douchebags at the table. I've berated. I feel like people did that a lot more back then, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But now it's like you look at the young kid and he's doing it right. He's, what are you doing? Like, now you're like, God, I can't believe I was like that at some point. It's just, oh man,
Yeah.
it's so bad for the game, and especially now that the games are so miserable. When you see people do it, you're like, God, please don't say anything. Just say nice hand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I was on that level one time in my life, so it's hard to say anything.
Yeah, is this a quick PSA of like, if you're the guy at the table and somebody beats you with trash, I would there's this, it happens over and over again. It's a recurring thing, and I'm sure you saw it a ton as a dealer and as a player. And guys, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like you see this moment where a scrub comes in and he plays, like, let's say he decides he's going to play like 5-7 offsuit, and he flops gin. Beats the guy who had aces and 3-bet him pre-flop. He shouldn't have been in there. He shouldn't have made the call. He was out of position. He was short stacked. Like, he did everything wrong, but he wins because he flopped the nuts, right? And the guy who has aces, if especially when you have a big ego like that, loves to come in and be like, "You idiot! What were you doing? You did everything wrong. What? You're going to call a 3-bet out of position with a short stack?" And is this what you're talking about? Where you're just like, dude, shut your mouth.
Yeah,
like, this is the reason we're going to be able to make money.
Yeah, exactly. Like, keep doing that. They got to say something instead of just moving on and getting the money by the end of the session. That's why there is a game, because those hands can happen, right? Otherwise, if everybody played perfect, it would be terrible.
Yeah.
Who's winning?
Speaking of everybody playing perfectly and terrible, Tom, I'm curious what you think, because chess really has this element where there is no variance. And so for those of you who don't know, Tom is a Canadian, was it Grandmaster, and you represented your country?
No. International Master.
International Master.
Well, it's one level below, but it's a big level.
Okay.
It's like the difference between being like a AAA baseball player and making the major leagues.
I mean, better than 90+% of the world, right? So, but you're playing a game where you get the expected result every time. When you went to poker, what was it like to be like, hey, I think I have a skill advantage, but it doesn't always show up? Like, did that mess with your brain a little bit?
Okay, I'm going to tell a story. I emailed he who shall not be named. What was the guy's name? The dude that got what was his name? He's a chess player. So far. He was a chess player who eventually was non-personed by the poker community because allegedly he took a bunch of money. This was like 20 years ago.
I don't know who this is.
What was his name? His sister was a big poker player too. Andy Duke's brother.
Yeah, Letterer.
That's it.
Oh,
okay. I emailed him back in like around 2000, and I asked him about exactly about that, because he was a chess player. He's about a 2100 player, which makes him better than like maybe roughly like 90% of tournament players. So pretty good. And he said that in his opinion, like chess players would have a lot of trouble with the luck aspect of poker, where you could plan everything out sort of perfectly, and then fate intervenes, and then like just pure luck, like things go wrong, which is certainly true, right? There's probably a very good reason why most chess players would not make good poker players, because we try to plan things out, and but on the plus side, like we do a lot more suffering, because when I'm playing against somebody that's good, I might be lost in minute 90, but like the game lasts 4.5 hours, and it's not bad enough that I'm dead, but my opponent and I both know that I'm dead. So,
right.
So, it's a different type of suffering, I suppose.
Go ahead. No, I was
just wondering that this is interesting about fighting sports versus mental sports. In your opinion, is it worse to think that you're weak or stupid?
Stupid.
I think so too. I think so too. But maybe not everybody would think that, right? And so that might make things like chess and poker actually kind of harder, because if you fail at them, right, even if it's not your fault, like you're gonna feel kind of stupid, right? Whereas if like I have a fist fight against somebody and they clock me one, and they're like, "You're weak," it's like, yeah, I'm 60 years old. Yeah, you're right. I'm weak, right? So I don't know though. I mean, another person might have a different answer to that question.
Jiu-jitsu is interesting because it's like a combo. Smart kids are taking the sport over because it's the problem solving.
Right.
But then you also need to be able to move your body, and like quickly, but the strength doesn't play as much of a factor. In jiu-jitsu, it's more how quick can you solve this problem before the other person. And a lot of people know the reaction, right, as they get higher up. They're like, if I do this, he's going to do this. So you got to like the levels ahead, just like poker. It's just leveling. And so yeah, it takes a good combo, I guess. But I feel like weight definitely matters. People say the weight doesn't, but I guess if you're super highly skilled, it doesn't matter. That like my coach is $145, 145 pounds. I'm 170, 175. He murders me, you know. But when I start going with a guy similar weight, similar level, 40 pounds heavier than me, I'm like, oh God, like I don't have the technique there. You know what I mean? Quite yet.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. It's so fun.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like jiu-jitsu has a lot more of the chess style punishment for like, if you are the white belt, yeah, you might occasionally manage to find yourself in a spot where you're beating the guy above you. But most of the time when you roll with them, even if you happen to get into a good spot occasionally, the majority of the time you're suffering and trying to figure out how not to suffer anymore, right? And until that guy comes in who's lower than you, that you go, oh, okay, now I see that I have the advantage. But it seems to play a lot more like chess. Like it's pretty rare that wouldn't you say that you go, oh, I got lucky and managed to like end up in a choke or a submission.
Yeah, it's kind of like poker. It's like just long term, like I said, the guys who, it's like he played a million more hands than that new guy in the poker. It's kind of like jiu-jitsu. They've learned 1,000 more techniques and been on the mat for 1,000 more hours. So long term, they're going to get you. They're going to escape. Like you know, as a white belt, mostly you're learning escapes because you can't do anything else because everybody's already going to have you in a bad position. So you have to kind of first. I think that's probably why they think they're going to come in and learn how to break arms and all that right away. But that's not really it. You're learning how to you're really sparring every day. You're fighting every day, you know? Yeah. It's not like Taekwondo where you go do some kicks and then give you a black belt in like a year or something. And you don't even fight with people.
And you're, I mean, this is my mentality right now, 6 months in, but it's like, I'm really just like, how do I suffer less? Yeah. Is that fair to say? Like when you're there, it's like, how do I suffer less? I'm not thinking, how do I win?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's like a win is how can I prolong the mission or something like that.
Yeah. Which I think translates right back to poker, because if you take this mentality with poker where you're like, I want all the fancy, like I want to be able to, find these 3-bet bluffs when I'm on the turn and stuff like that, versus just going, this is a leak in my game. I gotta open this hand less. I need to not be doing these things pre-flop. Like the leaks in the game, pulling that out is so much more valuable than learning the fancy move, and in jiu-jitsu, it's like, if I can just learn to suffer less, eventually I'll get around to winning. But it's like, until I stop the big holes in my game, there's no point in learning that sweet, fancy submission just to not be able to ever get to that position,
Right. Those big fancy bluffs are few and far between. Like if I'm like 3-barrel bluffing off my whole stack, that's not very often. And a lot of I feel like a greater percentage of the time these guys have it, especially out here. In the smaller games, everybody's trying to go polarized and 120% pop, but they just always have it when they do almost, right?
Right.